Greetings. My name is John E. LaMuth, and I'm a professor with the American University of Sovereign Nations. And I just, as part of my research, I published a new book at the beginning of the year. It's called World Peace 2.0, Restoring Global Harmony. And I'm going to try and show briefly in this talk how a lot of this can, as I explain in the book, how something that ambitious can be actually possible, just through a greater understanding of the virtues and the values that we use through world peace. And I have a nice audience here of fellow members, and I wanted to start here with this diagram here. It shows the hierarchy of the virtues palette. I have a laser pointer here, so I can try and follow along there. It starts with a very personal level. Let's go back to the smaller size, that way I can fit in here. There we go. Here we got the personal authority. It's authority because he acts first. And then we have the conditioned states here of solicitude, submissiveness, desire, and worry, which are occurring in the present. And then we have the alter ego states, or the personal follower roles, where your solicitous attitude is approved in the future. Your submissiveness is treated leniently. And then your desirous reinforcement leads to my aspirations, and the aspiration goes back to go again, the front row there. And so this is the basic behavioral conditioned worksheet, and the top level of the hierarchy. And then as we scroll down here to the I forgot to say that there's also a worry and anticipation of a compliant treatment in the future. And then you see this compliant treatment going into the present, because conditioning is a two-stage process. So you got the future and you got the present. It's always, time's always slipping into the future. So going down to the group authority here, we get into the really first true virtues and values. We got, I call it personal ideals: glory, honor, dignity, integrity. They all seem to be grouped together. And then the cardinal virtues. This is one of the most famous groupings of the virtues from Plato and the Republic. And it has the same dynamic as in the personal realm, only the group authority takes precedent over any personal concerns. And then the group representative or the group follower has the option of rejecting group authority. So here, the group authority acts in a gloriously solicitous fashion in anticipation of the prudent approval of the group follower. And the honor, same goes with dignified desire for the temperate sense of aspiration. So this can even go to even a higher level. It goes to like a universal level, what I call spiritual authority.
Would you like to go down?
Yeah. Here we get into like the spiritual authority. We still haven't reached peace in the very highest levels, but we're getting there. So you get at the spiritual level, we got the universal set, which is the group of all groups, or all of mankind, and that's where the religions enter in. They all claim authority over all of mankind. So here you got this civil liberties. You see these in the American Constitution: providence, liberty, civility, austerity. And then we got the theological virtues. You see actually in the name of the spiritual disciple: faith, hope, charity, and decency. Those are right out of the Christian Bible. And and you see the same dynamic. Here you got the active roles here. You act providentially in anticipation of a faithful treatment by the disciple. Or you act in a libertarian fashion in anticipation of hope for justice. And we also have like civility, charity, austerity, decency. Nobody has ever united all of these into a hierarchy like this. You know, I mean, this is all new. And then we go to humanitarian authority, which is just spiritual authority over all ages and times. So you have the time dimension, and that makes these respective virtues even more abstract. So you have grace instead of providence, free will instead of liberty, and you have magnanimity, equanimity. These are super high qualities that we all admire. And then the follower role, you get the classical Greek values. Here we get Plato again, where you have beauty, truth, goodness, and wisdom. And that is, you would think that really is the highest level you can go. You see the same dynamic as before there. But actually, you can, from humanitarian authority, humanitarian follower, you can go to the highest level here, the highest nameable level, which is the transcendental level. You got the humanistic values. Peace, here we go. Here's my title there: peace and love, tranquility and equality. Those are this super abstract terms that we all use in everyday speech and everything, but that is, if I can show how peace tracks back to the personal, the group, and the spiritual and the humanitarian level, this is a tremendous amount of understanding that can be used in mediation and between world powers and the United Nations. All of that. But for every authority role, there's also a follower role here. And here we get into the super interesting part, the mystical values. And you see these accounts of mystics and everything: ecstasy, bliss, joy, and harmony. Those are that's the highest nameable range that you can. They almost all seem almost like synonyms of each other, because they're kind of it's so abstract. They're kind of blending together in the language tradition. But beyond the transcendental, you could even get into the supernatural. And that's not nameable, but I'm sure there's mystics that have maybe gotten to that range, or I don't know if they ever came back, because that's a super high range of functioning. Can you zoom out? I see all of them together now, kind of. Go down to 100 there, or something. Here we go. Yeah. So here we see again. We went through the personal level and the personal follower, then the group authority and the group representative, and then we went to universal level, what I call spiritual authority and spiritual disciple. Then it gets real abstract from here, as I show in my book, the humanitarian authority and follower, and the transcendental authority and follower, where you get into peace and love and equality. These are all very active social justice and activist positions. They all use these terms, especially the progressives. They insist on equality and peace and harmony, joy and harmony. So that's the basic thrust of my work there. I also show in the book I have a patent for ethical artificial intelligence, where I show how these are all show how the hierarchy can be programmed in the computer. And the patent is number 6587846. I did sell the patent a number of years ago, and it might have expired, but so let's scroll down and we'll go to that table of definitions there. Oh, here we go. Yeah, you found it. You've got the definitions based on one quadrant there. So you could go up a little bit. You'll see all the terms that I talked about: glory, prudence, providence, faith. And here we go. It says, let's go down to the glory one here. Previously, you, as personal follower up here, have rewardingly acted approvingly towards me in response to my solicitous treatment of you. But now I will gloriously act in a solicitous fashion. That's the maneuver based upon the group authority towards you in anticipation of your approving treatment. So group authority takes precedent over any personal follower. But then the follower can jump to the group level as well. So it says, but now I, as group representative, or the group follower I call it, will prudently act in an approving fashion towards, you will act towards me, overruling my gloriously solicitous treatment. And this same pattern, this same dynamic repeats throughout the set of tables. These are all actually taken from the patent. These are upgraded, improved versions of them. But we'll go down, we'll scroll down a little more and see the pattern here. See that I got providence, faith. I, spiritual authority, will gloriously act providently towards you, which is like a universal theme. But now I, as Now you as spiritual disciple will prudently act in a faithful fashion towards me, overruling provident treatment. And then at the humanitarian level, we got the grace, providently act gracefully. You can see the theme here, they all seem to fit together. But now you will bodiously act in a faithful fashion, beautifully act. That brings in beauty, and the whole listing being beauty, truth, goodness, and wisdom. And then great, at a transcendental level, grace gives way to tranquility. Transcendental authority, tranquilly act gracefully. So that's like the time dimension and the abstraction dimension. And then the follower over here leads to the ecstasy part of it. But anyway, this book, I have a dedicated website. This I could barely just go into a few of the, just a basic outline, but I have more information posted on my website. World Peace, the number 2, just like here, I couldn't put the decimal place in there. So I just put worldpeace2.com. If you go to that website, you'll get a ton of information. I wasn't really able to, with this set of diagrams, to go in. For every virtue, there's a corresponding vice. So there's, like I said, there's a whole realm of negative conditioning that I show how you can contrast the positive and eliminate the negative. As well as every virtue has an extreme form. So you have what they call the vices of excess. So, like I said, you can see that all on the website if you have access. And this is what the cover looks like. On the back, I have all the different categories. And in summary, I would say that this is a valuable new technology for diagnosing how relationships work together, people work together, or sometimes they conflict with each other. And I don't show the conflict part here, but like I said, I give the patent number too. That's if you go to the USPTO Patent and Trademark Office and type the number in 6587846. You can get the complete patent, or also Google has Google Patents with all the diagrams we can reproduce. And this said this has the potential for artificial intelligence. As far as we can have artificial applications we can all trust, and as opposed to some people, there's mostly good people in the world, but some people take you by surprise, So, but this shows how everything can be worked out scientifically. Like I said, there's nobody else has developed a system where you can take behavioral conditioning, which is scientific, from B.F. Skinner, and instrumental conditioning, and show how you can get all of the higher virtues and values from such a meta-perspectival hierarchy. So each higher square is a meta-perspective on the one before it. So this, at risk of over-talking this and everything,
And so, how many virtues and vices do you have?
altogether my system has 1,040 unique individual terms.
How many are virtues and how many are vices?
They're split into 8 parts. 1/4 of those are virtues and values. That's like 254. And then we have the vices, similarly 250. And then we have the realm of the, I was mentioning the vices of excess, which are also 250. And that includes extremes of mental disorders, when you get into that level of extremes. And also there's a new category I created called hyperviolence, which is extremes in the realm of the vices of defect. And that explains a lot of the extremist terrorism and that's been happening in the world. And this really has the potential to, for the mediators of the world to, like I said, diagnose and, I mean, if everybody knows, if everybody's aware of why they're acting the way they do, you know, as in conditioning theory and scientifically based system like this, then I think there's no limit to how we can improve the world, get everybody back to acting virtuously and not acting in conflict. So I'd like to wrap up then, or if there's any questions from the audience. Or
Okay, so John, very interesting material. Fascinating that you're thinking about applying it to AI. That makes a really nice connection from really the most ancient history of the virtues, which is the Platonic and pre-Platonic, or who knows where it goes back to, but certainly it seems. So I have 2 questions. One, is the Platonic pretty much your root source of determining and sourcing the foundation of where your hierarchy has originated from? Looks like sort of a combination of the Greek and then moving into the Christendom and that sort of integration there.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct in that?
Yeah, the hierarchy just doesn't go just from the personal on up. It can also go from the supernatural down. So if there's a supernatural entity or God acting, controlling the nature of things, then that's one way we would understand them, to the Platonic Greek values: beauty, truth, goodness, wisdom.
Are you familiar with the Kabbalah and the sort of the tree of virtues that were supposed to be based on the fabric of? It's a bit similar in terms of the hierarchy of. It's just sort of another approach to this kind of thing.
Yeah, I've seen the diagrams. It seemed a little difficult to grasp all of it, but like I said, with the aid of this new system, I think maybe you can get like a hybrid fusion of Kabbalah and this, you know, especially when I get into the, like I said, the supernatural and the humanitarian levels, you know. It's
Certainly, we definitely need virtue in our world. That seems to be what's amiss in terms of how people are acting and how our societies are unfolding, that we need to return to the virtues and the values. I'm really fascinated with the idea of this question of what we're doing with AI now, and certainly it's interesting you haven't got any of this stuff out here, or not too much of it out here in the desert, which is, a lot of people find it, there are lots of health and ethical issues involved in where we're going with AI. So putting in a virtuous basis, and then with an AI, certainly you don't have it's like creating an oversoul for the AI in a funny way,
sure,
because you're
yes.
dealing with a purely mechanistic system. So it's interesting how you've taken them and made them into sort of this logic framework. It's kind of like, so it would be really interesting. And I'm really interested in what happened to the patent. I have to make sure I have the right numbers for it. And where did it go, and is anyone actually using it or applying it? Because you know, like at MIT, they've got these little greeters that sort of mimic faces and things, and then they've got, I can't remember her name, but she goes around shaking hands, and she's got this little computer brain and a face.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I don't remember what, Lucy or something like that. Or Sophia, I think her name is.
They're pretty convincing robots. This would just be a pure language simulation. How we use these emotional terms to communicate. In fact, every kind of relationship we have is labeled with something like love, or acting peacefully, or justly, or something like that. But that's a nice thing about, even if I'm in the desert, you know, you can still, the internet, you can still telecommute and communicate to anyone around.
Yeah.
I've been learning a lot of the different movements that are different strategies, and learning into my angle on it, so that they're able to, hopefully they can use it, you know.
I think it's really fascinating. I love that thing of putting the virtues into logical context and linking it to the AI system. That's really interesting.
Oh, it's unique. Nobody's ever done it.
They've been talking about that a lot, to see how do we get, you know, this monster AI is supposed to take over, and there aren't going to be humans anymore because AI is blah, 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 blah. All the things people talk about with science fiction extended into our non-fiction and all of that. So it's really interesting to think about programming in a virtue base.
Yeah, this would be AI you could trust implicitly, you know. I mean, the only way, you know, if somebody snuck in and changed the programming or something, but
So it
on
seems
the
like
very
somebody
surface.
snuck in and changed the human programming in some way at this point. But
Well, I mean, people are individuals, and sometimes people get selfish. They want to exploit their own well-being over somebody else, you know, and get a competitive edge. I mean, you know, it's survival of the fittest, you know, and evolution, you know, and it's
That is
gross
a
to talk about, though.
right, but it's a misconstrual of Darwinian whatever it is, which we understand, but somehow it got pushed off the table with capitalism into the water we drink.
Well, I mean, in human case is a special case, but nature is red in tooth and claws, they say. You know, you look in the jungle, and one animal wants to eat the other one, and the
But
animals
it
eat the
still
plants.
maintains an ecological integrity, which is
Oh, sure,
interesting.
yeah, Mother Nature is great, you know, and like you gotta average everything averages out, you know. If there's too many predators, then the prey go away, and then the predators die off, and then the prey come back. And they've done studies of with wolves and the horseshoe rabbits in the Arctic, you know, and there's just boom and bust, you know, and luckily we don't have to live in a society like that.
Because we're supposed to be advancing the evolution of virtue, I think. So I really just want to say I like it. It's very interesting. It's very interesting to see.
No, I appreciate
Thank you for
the
your
feedback.
work. Sure, yeah, I want to investigate the patent, see where it's
Hey, it's the
going.
meaning of life, you know. I mean, we can diagnose any kind of relationship, you know,
Absolutely.
make it better for everybody.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, this is Sonia. She has a question.
Yeah, how are you, John?
What's that?
How are you?
How are you?
Well, I'm enjoying talking about my work, you know. I have a real passion for it, and
Thank you for your, very cordially listen to your presentation and regarding your topic that is global, your topic is global,
global peace and
global
harmony.
peace too, and you want to express about what you want to express.
Oh, about how if we understand peace and love and harmony,
Maintaining the global harmony, right?
yeah, people.
So you use some special some terms like bleach, then ecstasy, then joy.
The mystical values, yeah.
How you can relate these terms with your topics?
Well, like every culture has, a mystical experience, especially the Hindu and the Buddhist, they get into through meditation and discipline and everything, they can get to really a higher mystical state. And that's where they get the ecstasy and the joy. I mean, it's just pure transcendent.
What do you mean? What it indicates regarding the term bleach?
Bliss.
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 Yeah, bliss.
Now, bliss is like just feeling that you have an all-knowing sense of knowing the pattern of nature, I mean, it's very rare to get to that level. But that's a level of pure transcendence. You're transcending ordinary reality, and you're getting to a pure level of consciousness. The Hindus, they call it Satori, and Nirvana, and that's where everything you can't. It's not even nameable.
How many respondents of your thesis? This presentation, how many respondents you have taken the response?
The research was describing thousands of books and talking to many people rather than using literature and a presentation of ideas, not a survey of some particular group. It's global.
Just
A global-
investigate so many books, like 1,000 books.
Thousands of books, yeah.
Thousands books, okay, good.
And I saw there's different groupings of virtues that can be brought together into the hierarchy.
To maintain the global harmony, so how you can relate the tranquility and equality?
Well, one is like positive reinforcement, and one is negative reinforcement. That's positive reinforcement is you do something in anticipation of a reward, and negative reinforcement is you don't do something in order to avoid a bad consequence.
That is tranquility.
Yeah, that's the equality part of it. The tranquility is in the positive ring, while the equality tries to maintain an order. And it's hard to explain.
Okay, good done.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you very much.
And what about in Bangladesh? Sonia, do you think this model of virtues and vices would be accepted among people?
Of course, it can be a model. It can be a model to maintain a global harmony, and I think the researcher can pick some examples and some messages. They took some message from the thesis, and then they will explore to maintain our harmony towards the environment. Actually, the global warming and global harmony is almost same as whole world is suffering regarding global harmony. Okay, so every government has there are some own criteria and own way of dealing of the countries global maintaining or global maintaining. So they can provide the information to the local government units, and then the local government units will apply the some techniques to maintain global harmony. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions for you.
Yeah, let's say your name.
My name is LaMuth.
Okay,
So I'm
that's for the audience.
yeah.
Okay.
One question is, how have you included Chinese values in your system?
Yeah, I bring up Confucius. He's really one of the most famous, one of the social philosophers in the Chinese system, and this really goes along with my group and my spiritual level. He had a system of merit-based system of social administration, and that's like I said, based on the virtuous part of it, especially like the cardinal virtues. I know that's a Western grouping, but I haven't really read all of his stuff, but I'm sure he mentions a good majority of those virtues, and I think I know the Chinese government now, they're very invested in
Yeah.
keeping people virtuous. In
Yes.
fact, like I said, they have like a point system. If you're not the proper citizen, you can lose a point here or there, and then you lose some of maybe some of your privileges or something. I mean, everybody has like a social rating, so like I said, they could maybe use this and find a way to get everybody back together, for the benefit of the state and the society. Because there's not much in the way of religion there. I mean, it's a secular society, but they're very invested in universal values. Nevertheless, the universal, how it applies to everybody, and like I said, the United Nations, they're on a lot of the major panels there, and they even have like veto vote on the United Nations. So, like I said, I'm sure, and they're all developing artificial intelligence too over there. Like, they're trying to. They say they're going to outcompete the U.S. pretty soon. So I've approached different researchers in China, and I've just offered my work for to get it out there in the world, and maybe they're working behind the scenes, and when they get the right product out, they'll come out and they'll acknowledge me, for giving them a whole platform to develop on. Everybody develops on everybody else's platform, but I think this could be the ultimate platform, as far as really, like I said, on the human level, keeping society together, and then even the artificial intelligence, because they have cameras that can recognize you in the crowd and everything, and you got to have ethical safeguards on those computers, what they can do,
Yes.
So I guess I'll let you go to your next question, and
Thank you.
not too much.
Okay. China has 5,000 years of history, but he seems that we focus on economics too much. Do you have some advice to promote global harmony?
Well, I have nothing but admiration for the economics of China. I mean, you see the picture of Shanghai about 30 years ago, and now there's nothing but the skyscrapers and everything. I mean, it's fabulous how they brought, you know, a lot of the interior, you know, people that were living subsistence farming and brought them in. Everybody's got cell phones now, right? Even on the farms, you know, and that's got to help too with drones, you know, and everything can help with the farming of rice and all the different crops and everything. So, you know, what else is there really for the government to be in but the economics, you know? I mean, like I said, like I said in the previous question, I think it would be good to maybe get a spiritual focus, and that's where my higher levels come in, the humanitarian and the transcendental. This is like a purely secular system where you don't have to believe in a Christian God or a Islamic God or Hindu I mean, this is like the great equalizer.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, like I said, I'm really a lot of admiration for China and the progress, and you're lucky to live there, you know, I'm telling you.
Very good.
Well, thank you so much for your question.
Thank you. I have some question, John.
Oh boy.
So at what level on evolution of biology do we see for example, insects, an ant in an ant colony? How many virtues and vices does it display? Does it have to have moral consciousness, or is action sufficient?
No, they've done studies where ants and everything, they just act on pheromones, you know, the queen gives off pheromones and they follow a trail laid down. They have such a tiny brain, it's like the size of not even a pinhead, you know. To really get the ethical system that I've developed, you got to have a brain big enough for language, and some of the higher apes are able to learn a little bit of sign language, but man is the only primate to really go beyond like a pecking order in society, where we go to organized religion and humanitarian concerns like conservation and ritual and tradition and that. So yeah, it's a pure language simulation that I developed. And
so let's say I'm developing an AI machine, and the AI machine is primitive, so it can only exercise 20 virtues and 20 vices. It's only programmed for that much. Can it still be a moral agent if it has choice on those 20 virtues and 20 vices?
no, I wouldn't want to trust that. You know, it's just that'd be a partial system. You need all the levels that I have developed to the extremes. That way you can truly trust it, you know. But yeah, it's with the computing power the way it is now, you shouldn't really have any limitations like that, you know. That might be a prototype, you know.
So let's imagine in the future that the AI becomes even more sophisticated with not 1,000 virtues and vices, but 10,000 virtues and vices, even more sophisticated than the human mind. What's the implication of this for moral agency?
Well, like I said, I told you there was 1,040 individual terms, but actually, when I go through all the different permutations and everything, it's closer to 30,000. So that's where we never seem to have the same train of thought twice, because there's so many 30,000, you know, and go to the next level, then times 30,000, You know, it just astronomical, but you can diagnose it all with the system, you know, and that's going to be kind of the singularity. I think that as long as you keep the virtues in there, you could have like you could close the universities, just have a master professor that could teach you in any possible subject and handle 1 million students at the same time. Hate to put you out of business there, but
No, it's interesting, yeah, we can. Oh, well, thank you so much, John. Very interesting. Thank you.
Appreciate the camera work there.
Thank you. Well, thank you for today, for an interesting lecture. Thank you.
And thank you for everybody in the audience that will see this now or will see it in the future. I hope this inspires everyone to get along and love with each other. Yes.
You have some more questions, please?
Well, we have a follow-up question here. Yes.
Just a comment.
Okay.
Yes, Carla?
Comment after our long drive through the desert in the sunset. So it feels to me much like the virtues, all these virtues, it's like the rainbow. None really begin and none really end, and they all sort of merge into this spectra of spectras and spectras and spectras and cross, and then we get the complexity of life. It's interesting. So my field is astronomy and astrobiology, and this sort of deeper levels of trying to understand life and what its deeper foundations and foundationless foundations as we go off into the shunyata, or whatever you call it, those levels, and how quality emerges out of the unqualified, and these harmonics, the spectrums of the virtues, the sounds of the deeper levels of it is what comes to mind, kind of like these blendings. I actually heard, you may know from the Eastern traditions, that idea of the chalice of virtues, the chakras, and the
Oh, yes.
Brahmachandra chakra.
The crown
The crown chakra,
yeah,
yes.
wow.
Even in the Islamic, all the 99 names of Allah are all the virtues that are supposed to be hidden within the fabric of the deeper foundations of the levels of the Great Spirit, whatever we call it.
And don't leave out Kabbalah too, you know.
All of it, yes, but all of it seems to be this great
Kabbalah, I mean.
fabric, yeah, this great fabric of the virtues are really the first emergences of the sounds, the frequencies.
That's what's
As
so
the
nice
universe
about my
manifests.
hierarchy is it goes both ways. It goes top down, from the supernatural down to us as individuals, or we can organize as a group of spiritual entities and everything, and go up and empower.
It's interesting to think about coming back to, which is again Platonic as well, virtue as the fundamental basis, off the edge of, from physics, it's like much more subtle than even the quantum mechanics and all of this sort of stuff, that underlying all of that, to go back to that basic essence, or however we relate to it, that virtue is the first quality that rises more subtly than the physical phenomena, it's a nice perspective to go to.
Yeah, it's amazing that Plato and Aristotle, 2,600 years ago, they organized these virtues and stuff into groups that me in my modern age of science and everything, I was able to...
The logic and the logos.
Yeah, I pick them out and show them how they really all belong. They're all interrelated,
Are you familiar with the James? It goes back 3,000 to 5,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know where it all started, but it's really nice. I appreciate it.
I wonder, John, did you ever consider using a mandala diagram to represent the virtues and vices as opposed to a table or figure? How would that work? Because mandalas can bring in more of that layers and complexity. Maybe could be interesting, huh?
I did make a diagram I call the power pyramid. And I show the different quadrants in the form of a pyramid going up, and
Or even you could start with the center and
Center,
then work
going
out.
out. Yeah, sure.
And then let that interconnect. Or the torus is, of course, very much. People are appreciating that, and which is again the earth, the magnetic and fields and the really inherent in nature is that with the center and the fields around it.
What about the Mobius strip, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a three-dimensional object, but it only has one surface, you know? You
Sure.
draw a line all the way around it, you come back to where you started.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot of work to be done. Thank you, John.
Uh-huh.
Good. So are we going to get World Peace 3.0? When's that coming?
No, I'm always working on good projects, you know? I'm thinking about working on something to do with the upcoming election, you know, in the United States. I'm working on a book showing how the liberals have one side of the hierarchy and the conservatives are on the authority side, and the progressives, they're more idealistic, they're on in the future and the follower side. And this committee heals some of the rifts that are going on.
Yeah.
It's a nice perspective.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm still working out the details, but it should be peaking right. I still got 500 days left, so.
Weaving the bridges.
Yeah, build the bridges, right.
Build the
And get
bridges.
people to start yelling at each other and just seeing each other's perspectives, you know.
It's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Harmony.
Harmony.
Yep, harmony is the very last one in my hierarchy. That's right. It's out there, man.
Well, thank you so much, John. It's been very informative. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace,
Bye.
love, and harmony.
Peace, love, and harmony.